The controversy continues over the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project.
Why should Marylanders have to give up their private property to enrich a New Jersey utility?
As the group behind the project gets ready to go onto private property to conduct surveys for the transmission line.
It's just very upsetting that somebody else has more rights to my property than I actually do.
We're pressing for answers surrounding MPRP in this Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. Thank you for joining us for this Fox 45 News, Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. I'm Mackenzie Frost. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the controversy surrounding the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project. The transmission line would cut through Baltimore, Carroll, and Frederick counties. It could use eminent domain to take people's properties. While developers say it's necessary to prevent black and brownouts, others call the transmission line an extension cord from Pennsylvania to data centers in Virginia with no benefit to Marylanders.
That's the hardest part to swallow, that this project is not for Maryland. You know, I can only speculate that they picked the line and then backed into the alternatives because, you know, when we were doing our search, you certainly didn't find any of the alternatives.
The chair of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, otherwise known as FERC, posted on LinkedIn and criticizing spending on transmission lines. While he did not mention MPRP specifically, he did say, quote, transmission should be built to serve consumers with reliable power at least cost, not to serve special interests and policy agendas. Despite the pushback, developers of the transmission line are gearing up to start surveys on private property. Fox 45's Jessica Babb has a look at the latest developments.
With the Maryland District Court making its decision.
It's just very upsetting that somebody else has more rights to my property than I actually do.
Letting Public Service Enterprise Group, the developers behind the debated transmission line on people's private property.
Very emotional for us.
Residents living along the route, like Raina Gover, are getting these letters saying PSEG and its approved contractors plan to start non-invasive environmental and land surveys in the coming weeks.
Heartbroken, I guess, is the best word to describe it, that somebody can come on your property and just do whatever they want, whenever they want.
While an appeal is underway, the court so far hasn't issued a ruling preventing the surveys from happening. But right now, short of the vague letter from PSEG, landowners like Gover aren't getting much info.
All I have is that they're going to post 24 hours before they come out, and it'll be sometime in the next 30 days. And beyond that, I have no idea what they are going to or want to do.
Which is why lawmakers like Senator Justin Reedy sent a letter calling for more transparency, requesting information.
This entire process has been shrouded in secrecy.
The letter saying PSEG is being less than forthcoming about the extent and types of surveys needed on private property. We asked PSEG again, when will the surveys start? And why is PSEG telling landowners to contact their agent rather than telling them which surveys are required for their property? In response, getting few answers. PSEG didn't provide a date for the surveys, but says consistent with the court order, notice will be provided at least 24 hours in advance. And they say the recent letters to landowners were intended to open a direct line of communication to a land agent that will serve as a single point of contact for the project. Friday evening, PSEG responding to the lawmakers' letter reiterating that, also saying each property will require a range of different surveys, taking anywhere from an hour to a couple of days.
We will definitely keep fighting as long as we can.
As the pushback for this project keeps growing louder and louder, with many arguing the transmission line will benefit data centers instead of Marylanders. Despite Governor Westmore voicing his grave concerns about this project, his office announcing Thursday they're putting out an open request for information to identify new interregional transmission projects to improve grid reliability.
I believe this power line project, MPRP, is a bad one. It does not help Maryland ratepayers because the power is going to bypass Maryland and go right to Virginia. But there's no question that if we don't make changes in our energy policy, we're going to have to bring other transmission lines in to Maryland from other states for the next decade, 2 decades, because we just don't have the juice right now to do all the things that we need to do.
In Baltimore, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
The Public Service Commission will make the final decision on whether the transmission line moves forward. Joining me now is the chair of the PSC, Frederick Hoover. Thank you so much for joining us to continue this conversation. I know we've had several conversations about this project, and now that this application is before the PSC, you're limited in what we can actually talk about. But I want to talk about the process moving forward. We know that there is a schedule and a timeline. Can you give us an update on where the PSC is in scheduling hearings and moving forward with that timeline?
So the commission had a what's known as a pre-hearing conference where we had all the parties, the applicant and the state agencies involved in the process, along with the group representing the homeowners in the 3 counties, to talk about setting up a procedural schedule, and that would involve hearings, evidentiary hearings before the commission at its office in Baltimore, as well as public hearings out in the service territory of the 3 counties affected by the project. The applicant proposed a schedule with certain dates in it, but we decided that that schedule really wouldn't work for all the parties involved. So we have actually asked our technical staff, who is a sort of independent entity involved in the process, to sort of work with all of the parties to create a procedural schedule going forward. We gave them 30 days to sort of work through that process. That 30-day period actually expires in a couple of weeks, and so we'll see a suggested schedule, hopefully a consensus schedule from all the parties that we will later adopt.
What was wrong with the proposed schedule from the applicant?
Well, there was concern raised by the Maryland state agencies who do the in-depth analysis of the transmission project, both for the need of it and the proposed route for it, about some information that they felt they needed in order to make their analysis that they had not been provided by the applicant. And there was a concern that the timeline that was laid out by the applicant was too constricted in order to do the substantive analysis that's needed to make this decision.
Is the field studies, is that part of that conversation?
That was part of the study. So the Department of Natural Resources is sort of the clearinghouse for an examination of this project by 7 different state agencies. And so they look at a wide variety of impacts of where this transmission line would go. So there's 2 questions that the commission has to figure out. One, should this project be built at all?
Right.
And if the answer to that question is yes, then the question becomes, where's it going to go? Now, the company in its application has suggested a route that they think is the best, but that route was actually one of 10 different routes that were suggested. And one of the questions that the state agencies had was some more information from the applicant about why the other 9 weren't selected. And then beyond that, these state agencies, the Department of the Environment, the Department of Natural Resources, the Maryland Historical Trust, have specific questions about the impacts that the proposed transmission line would have on the environment, the natural resources in the area, and also historical and cultural things that are in that part of the state. So all those issues need to be examined by the state agencies before they make their recommendation to us about where this transmission line would go if in fact it gets built.
If the field studies have yet to be completed, and we know that that is being debated in court and litigated, if that is tied up in court and that has yet to happen, how can the PSC move forward with the process?
Well, we can move forward, I guess, with the initial question about whether or not the project should be built.
Okay.
Because like I said, there's 2 things that we need to decide.
Sure.
One, is this project needed? Now, the applicant and PJM, the grid that serves Maryland, have articulated that their view is this project is needed in order to assure grid reliability and resources to maintain adequate power in the state of Maryland. That's their contention, and that's their rationale for why they think this project should be approved by the Public Service Commission. There'll be other parties involved in this proceeding that will be commenting on whether or not they agree with that. Or the third alternative is there some other way to assure the reliability that we need other than just building this transmission line. And so all of those issues will be discussed within the evidentiary proceedings before the Public Service Commission. So that part of the process can probably go forward as we're waiting on the information on the specific route impacts.
I see. That whole process sounds like it's going to take just a significant amount of time just in that aspect alone. And given the information that we've heard from PJM talking about rolling blackouts and rolling brownouts by 2027, we're halfway through 2025 already. Do you believe that their timeline and having it completed by 2027 is really realistic?
Well, I mean, this is getting into the area where I can't necessarily opine specifically on it. I mean, it is their contention, the company that wants to build the transmission line along with PJM, that this in fact is necessary in order to maintain assured reliability for the state of Maryland. That's essentially an open issue before us. So I can't necessarily say whether or not I agree or disagree on that. I'm waiting actually to hear from other entities that are involved in this process, the representative of residential customers, and also my technical staff. I mean, that's part of their job, is to examine that contention and to say, yes, it's true, or no, it's not. And again, there's this third option of, well, there's maybe some other way to fix this problem other than building this transmission line.
We also heard from this story from my colleague Jessica there talking about the open letter from the governor for a call for more transmission lines. How does that factor into just the overall need for, the power in Maryland and the role of the PSC playing into approving projects and moving forward? Does the PSC play a role in that letter that the governor, sent out?
Part of our process is actually, I mean, while we don't run the grid, PJM runs the grid, but any particular energy project, whether it's a power generation facility, and that power generation facility could be a fossil fuel plant. Historically, it was coal plants, then it became natural gas plants. More recently, it's been solar arrays and potentially wind turbines. But any of these energy facilities, along with transmission lines, in order to be constructed in Maryland, they actually have to get the permission from the Public Service Commission. So we're intimately involved in the approval of all of these projects. And in this past session of the General Assembly, we actually were given a new charge by the state legislature and the governor to start to examine what types of projects should be, power projects should be encouraged in the state of Maryland. So we're going to be holding a procurement process where we were looking for potential ideas and proposals on power projects in order to assure that Maryland has enough electricity to supply all the needs we have. Part of that also includes new technologies like battery storage and other new technologies that may allow for generation of electricity at one point of the day and use later on. So it's a mix of things, and so we are involved in that part of the process, which is sort of over and above this specific proceeding that we have.
There's a lot of conversation when we're talking about the MPRP is grid reliability and just the need for energy in the state of Maryland. We know that the state imports some 40% of the energy. And listening to the developers of the project will say that this is necessary for the grid reliability. And I know that in previous conversations, you and I have said that, the PSC will make sure that the PSC will do its job to make sure that the lights stay on in the state of Maryland. Is that still the plan? I mean, is that still the goal, even if this project still takes a long time and this process drags out and is litigated year after year after year and extends beyond the timeline that we're hearing from these developers?
And so there's a wide variety of entities that are involved in making sure that power is provided when you flip the light switch in your house. It involves not only state entities like the Public Service Commission, but also involves the local distribution companies, and beyond that now, the people that create power, the power generators, whether they own fossil plants or whether they own renewable facilities. PJM, which is the grid that oversees all that, has been charged with, by the federal government, to manage and make sure that there are adequate resources. And they actually had well, they're actually going through it this week too, but they had a test of it, just a couple weeks ago when we had that sort of extended heat wave. And so they were able to meet the needs that were demanded by when the temperature was really, really hot and it was really humid and everybody was running their air conditioners. PJM hit a new power grid, which is how much power they were putting out. They hit a new peak on that, but they were able to meet their responsibility. So everybody takes this job very responsibly, and so we all sort of play our part in making sure that there are reliable resources brought on through whatever method is needed to make sure the power is provided to the customers.
Do you believe that in the application process and in the conversations and the rhetoric surrounding MPRP that there's a bit of almost fear trying to be infused in people in the state of Maryland that if this transmission line isn't built, we're going to see a blackout in the state of Maryland?
Well, again, I mean, that's kind of getting too close to the issues related to the substance of the process. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion, both by the people who think the transmission line should be built and the people who think it shouldn't be built about consequences of either thing happening.
Right.
The Public Service Commission needs to sort of take all into account and make the correct decision. I mean, building a transmission, I will say this, I mean, building a transmission line is one of the most significant infrastructure projects that can be undertaken for the energy system in the state of Maryland, just because of the size of it, but also the cost of it. I mean, this is not an inexpensive proposition. And so we need to make sure that if this line is in fact the solution, we need to make sure that that's the proper way, and then try to figure out a way to mitigate the impact of where it goes if we decide that it has to be built. And it's something that the Public Service Commission has been doing for 100 years. So.
And so you said that earlier that, the 30-day, the timeline for when we could see the next schedule for the next step for the application process. That's coming up by the end of July-ish?
More,
roughly?
yeah. I mean, we issued an order as a result of our pre-hearing conference to give 30 days for the parties to try and work this out. So within that time period, so probably the beginning of August, we'll have another hearing where we'll get everybody together and find out if they made any progress. Now, when push comes to shove, I mean, the Public Service Commission will set the schedule.
Sure.
If the parties can't agree to some consensus of schedule, we'll just put something together based on what's needed in order to make sure that the analysis is done right. I mean, my primary concern is that we have this long established process for evaluating projects like this. This is not a brand new thing. It's something we've been doing for a long, long time. But I want to make sure that the process is followed, which means that the applicant needs to provide the information to the state agencies in order to do their analysis. They need to make their studies about what the project will do and where it might go and the impacts it would have on it and what things can be done by the applicant to maybe mitigate some of those impacts. And then all of that information comes to us, and then we make a decision as to, yes, you can build it, and here's how you have to build it, or no, let's do something else, or no, it's just not needed. So.
Perfect. All right, well, PSC Chair Hoover, I appreciate your time and your insight as always. Obviously, this is a conversation that we will continue and a topic we will continue to follow. Thank you so much, and stay with us. Our conversation will continue right after the break. Welcome back to this Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. I'm Mackenzie Frost. A judge has decided PSEG can go onto private property to conduct surveys for the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project. Fox 45 News has talked with sheriffs in the impacted counties who have said they will stand with their people when it comes to enforcing the order.
It's a civil order to go on to their property. I'm not getting involved in a civil order between the courts, Piedmont, and landowners. But I will stand with the landowners in this county and resist this project every single step of the way till the bitter end.
Joining me now is the president of the group Stop MPRP, Joanne Frederick, and impacted homeowner Mark Ferris. Thank you both for joining us. I appreciate your time. Now, let's start with Joanne. I understand that obviously you have been on the ground level of this from the very beginning. It has been a year at this point now since you have first learned about this project and have been working to fight against this project. First, let's talk about the lawsuit that you have been involved in, and I understand that an appeal has been filed to try and stop these surveys from going forward. Can you talk a little bit about where that stands and why you believe that's important to continue to fight?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did file an appeal with the Fourth Circuit last night, and that scheduling or that appeal order is online, and folks can take a look at that. The importance is really twofold. One, it's the precedent that this sets, and what the ruling that the district court came to essentially means that in the future, not only for the MPRP, but if there are other transmission lines in the future, the developer could use this ruling to then say, well, we're going to get access to your land even though the project hasn't yet been approved through the PSC. So I call it a flawed decision, and it doesn't follow the process that the state has laid out, and I think that's important. To be clear, none of the landowners wanted to be in this situation in the first place. I am one of them. Certainly don't want to continue the significant expense and just the uncertainty and heartache of this whole process. But we cannot allow this to stand because really of what it means in the future. And it is a slippery slope to allow eminent domain for projects that benefit private companies. And we can't let that stand.
Now, Mark, you live in one of these, in a property that would be impacted by this proposed transmission line, correct?
Correct. They came up with 10 initial routes.
Right.
Through my area, there were 2. They selected one that is less than a quarter mile from my family farm. The original route, a potential route, would have cut my farm in half. Fortunately, it's moved down, so it will not, at this time, cross my land, but it clearly ruins the view shed. And furthermore, I live in a rural community, and so I have, while I didn't get the burden of the transmission line, I have many, many people that come to me because they know I'm involved in this and ask what can I do, and they're impacted. I mean, I can give you story after story of people that are impacted negatively, and it's wrong. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Looking at where we just heard from the chair of the PSC talk a little bit about the process of the application, and it's twofold, whether it's, is this transmission line necessary in the first place? That's one route. And then if it is, where would it go? When it comes to where would it go, that's where the surveys really come into play. But do you believe that everything should be halted until the litigation it plays out and you guys have a resolution as to, this appeal, and you have an answer about whether these surveys will move forward? I
think that's the reason, that the decision came to file the appeal. Again, it's incredibly expensive and it is a distraction. However, it is, as we heard Chair Hoover say, is this line needed at all? And should we determine whether that is true or not before we use the threat of blackouts and brownouts to rush our way through to do surveys on private land? So on one hand, it's hurry, 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 and on the other hand, we're hurrying, on the backs of the people that are having to compromise their rights and their property, access to their property, et cetera. And it seems it is unfair and unjust, and that's why we're standing up and continue to stand up and say, no, this isn't right. The process is not being followed correctly, and if we need to stand in the way, we're going to continue to stand in the way.
To follow up on that, as I said, I was not named in the lawsuit that was filed in federal court, but in the last 4 weeks, I've had 2 survey teams on my property with no advance notice, no knowledge of them being there. The first one, I drove down my farm lane, found a black SUV with survey equipment, the back was locked. I said, please come out, you're trespassing. And then I drove up my farm lane because they didn't come out. By the time I got back from a half-mile drive, which is a very short time frame, they had gone. 2 weeks ago, I was baling my hay, and I came over a hill, and out from the woods came 2 surveyors with equipment, with vests. They had to cross a creek, go through 150 feet of woods, and they landed up, ironically, right when I came over the hill. And I said, you're trespassing. They did have badges on. They told me the neighbor said it would be okay, they could do that. And I said, well, that's not okay with me, and I own this land. So I think the aggressive nature of this company that's trying to develop this is over the top. It's not acceptable, and it's quite frankly not right for the people of Maryland.
So the surveys were on your property?
2 teams of surveyors have been on my property in the last 30 days. I had no knowledge of them coming, and and it was not contentious. The first group just disappeared. The second group, I said, you're trespassing, please leave, and they did. And that's the way it should be handled. It shouldn't be, a big frictional intervention, but they should respect. But the fact is, they should not be there to begin with.
And in the court order, it said they're supposed to give 24 hours notice. Now, is that only for the people who are involved in the lawsuit?
That's correct.
So people like you, Mark, who are not named in the lawsuit, they could just show up?
Well, they can show up, but they should not show up.
Legally, they don't have to give 20.
They have no rights at all to show up on my property or anybody else's property that's not named in the suit. If it's on property that is named in the suit, then they have requirements and notice, and so they should follow the rules.
Do you believe that that's how this process has been this entire time, though, from from a year ago when these community meetings started to pop up in Frederick and Carroll and Baltimore counties?
We hear one thing. We want to work with the community, work with the landowners, and please contact your land agent so we can have an open dialogue. And yet I wrote to my land agent, I got the letter, and I sent an email to the land agent assigned to me last Monday morning, and I still have not heard anything. So here we are 8 days later, and so it's this mixed message. We want to work with you, we want to cooperate, we're in a big hurry, and 8 days go by, and I get no response from my email to say, my email was, please give me the information on the survey you wish to conduct on my property, and I've not heard anything yet. So that's part of it, Mackenzie, is, we feel like we're, constantly trying to get to the ground truth here. And it is unfair that Marylanders, for a project that will not benefit Marylanders, have to chase a for-profit public corporation to get the truth out of them. And that's a terrible burden on the folks across Maryland. You saw Raina Gover. I get phone calls from upset landowners frequently and emails from upset landowners frequently who feel very threatened by this. And we just, we continue to hold the line, but it's not just, it's not right.
Looking at how this whole process has played out, Mark, did you ever imagine you would find yourself in the middle of something like this?
No, I didn't. I'm a retired telecom executive. I've been retired for 7 years. I've built many projects like this, as size, scope, scale. In my corporate experience or my whatever, I never conducted my business the way these people have done their business. When I retired, I hung up my sport coat, which I dusted off tonight to wear, and I thought I'm done. And then I saw Joanne post something on Facebook looking for a board member, and I said, sign me up. I've got some experience, and I will not have my family farm, my lifelong dream, damaged by somebody with a poorly planned project that's questionably needed, that no alternatives were considered, and it has been grossly mismanaged by the developer. So I said, sign me up, and I'm in for the fight, and I will represent my neighbors and our group to say, there's a better way to do this, and the way you're doing it is not right.
Now, there's been a lot of conversation about whether Maryland will actually see any benefit from this transmission line if and when it is built. if there was a guarantee that Marylanders would see the benefit of the additional power that it would bring into the state, would you be more willing to allow it to come into your neighborhood or your community and impact your view shed or cross your property?
To be honest with you, first off, they have to prove the need, which they have not done after numerous requests. Secondly, they have not come up with any alternatives. So before I could say yes or no to that question, I need them to prove the need, and they need to show me the alternative they considered and why they were discounted. For instance, reconductoring existing power lines, laying your line on right-of-way along a highway, looking at alternative energy sources. In the case of data centers, which is truly driving this, why not come up with a concept and approve BYOP, bring your own power? You want to build a data center, bring your own power and reduce the need on the grid. So there's many questions, and it's not just simplistic saying, again, it goes back to the point.
Sure.
Prove the need.
Joanne, how would you feel?
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And we know, right, according to the Market Monitor, 93% of the demand in PJM is related to data centers. And were it not for data centers, we wouldn't need all the infrastructure. So we keep pointing to the source of the problem, and yet we kind of close our eyes to the source of the problem and say, well, transmission is the solution here. And I think, the NERC report that came out in June points out the faults of transmission. Highly susceptible to weather, and goodness knows we've had weather here for the last couple of weeks, and the power goes out frequently. So why are we continuing to invest our time and hard-earned money and heartache in solutions that truly aren't reliable to add more overhead transmission to the grid? Is it not time that people across the entire country really deserve a energy solution for the next century and beyond that is underground, that is more reliable, that is perhaps high voltage direct current? All of those pieces, that the technology is here, we have the solutions. We just need someone with the courage to stand up and say, we're gonna build for the future. We're not gonna build for the past.
All right, hold that thought, because when we come back, I want to ask you about a meeting that you recently had with the Governor Westmore's team. Stay with us. We'll continue this conversation right after the break.
The direct benefits to Maryland are small. if not infinitesimal. We do know that if we don't have these extra lines, then we may have problems with the grid. We may have brownouts, but only because we have to get that energy through somewhere. And if it doesn't come through that line, it will come from somewhere else and maybe from parts of Maryland.
That was Baltimore County Delegate Michelle Guyton talking about the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project during another one of our town halls earlier this year on the same issue. She's just one of the state lawmakers on both sides of the aisle voicing their concerns about the project. Joining me now is one of those lawmakers, State Senator Justin Reedy. We also have Joanne Frederick, president of the Stop MPRP group. Thank you both for joining us again. Now, Joanne, I want to start with that meeting that you recently had with Governor Westmore's team. This was a meeting that we have talked about several times. You've been trying to get something on the books with Governor Westmore himself. Who did you meet with?
I met with Connor Shin, who's Governor Moore's energy policy advisor, and Deputy Chief of Staff Hernandez.
And how did that go?
Yeah, I appreciate their time, and it had been scheduled and had gotten rescheduled multiple times over the last 5 to 6 weeks. So we finally made it happen yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and I appreciate their time. I think that was thoughtful. I think there were two positives. One is they reiterated that they would ensure that the process in Maryland is followed. And we heard Chair Hoover speak a little earlier about this process and the length and scrutiny that the project will undergo. So the governor's office is certainly supporting the process that the state will conduct. And the governor, through his team, said that he is open to any and all of the above solutions to solve Maryland's energy challenges.
What does that mean?
Well, optimistically, it means that we can increase generation as needs to be done in the state of Maryland to avoid the need for transmission. Pessimistically, it could mean additional interregional transmission solutions and more lines running across Maryland. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt from an optimistic perspective and hope that we'll really lean forward into those solutions that are not transmission-based.
I know the governor has said that he, has real concerns about the use of eminent domain, especially when it comes to this specific project, and he said that he would stand with the people of Maryland on this project. Senator Reedy, what do you take that to mean when he says that he's going to stand with the people of Maryland?
Well, I think we've seen, and I'm glad Joanne was able to have this meeting on behalf of the community, but I think I'm glad to hear those positive tones, but it's very broad. And standing with the people of Maryland could very easily be shifted to, we can't have brownouts for the people of Maryland, so we have to do this. I'm glad to hear that the governor and his staff are open to alternatives. They have expressed concern about following the process, which is great. We really need to take, I've talked about this a lot, we talked about in the legislative session, greater action to increase our energy production in the state. A lot of that's more long range, long term, but we need to do more than we did in the last legislative session. I think we have to decide, are we going to be an energy production state or are we going to be a transmission state? Because I'm firmly opposed to this line. I don't believe it makes sense for a lot of the reasons that your guests have already talked about. But there will be more transmission lines coming into the state one way or the other if we don't get more energy production online. And it can't just be the wind and the sun. It's got to be more immediate, things like natural gas being reinvigorated, particularly very important.
Have you had any conversations with the governor personally about this project, MPRP, about some of the concerns that your constituents have about it?
Very briefly when I had an opportunity to be with him early in session, but very surfacey. And I say that just it was a quick conversation about the concerns. His staff I have talked with off and on throughout the process, trying to get a sense of where they're going to be. Up until, in this recent meeting is good, but have been concerned that it's been a lot of, we just have to see what happens with the process, And I understand that it is a quasi-judicial process at the PSC, and you can hear from Mr. Hoover how he has to be careful what he says, which is true, of course. But the governor appoints every member of the PSC. The governor appoints all of his state agencies. I'm glad the state agencies have been holding PSEG's feet to the fire to get some of these things done. But yeah, when it comes down to it, or I'm hoping there will be more control exerted internally even to try to keep this from being this catastrophic 70-mile extension cord. You asked the question earlier about people accepting it or not. This would be one thing, and I've said this to any group, whether they're 100% against it or not, it'd be one thing if this was a 7 or 8 mile line. it would just be different. We wouldn't be happy, but it would be a lot different. We're talking about 70 miles, and this is just a totally invasive in our communities.
And we've heard, the extension cord line from Pennsylvania down to data centers in Virginia. And data centers, that is part of the conversation that we're hearing at the national level, even with President Donald Trump, or even just today talking about the importance of, investing in AI and data centers and the future for the country. How do you feel about that as a Republican, hearing the president talking about that as the future for the country? Do you think that that is necessary, knowing what the amount of power that something like that will take?
I think as the president talks about AI, he's looking at it from a national security and technological investment point of view, and I don't think he's wrong. There is clearly an issue. We have to figure out how we're going to power these data centers in different communities, and we don't want, I believe, internationally subsidized, internationally invested tech companies, that have Middle Eastern investment coming into a community and basically putting a data center without the right kind of power infrastructure. Now, I'm not anti-data center necessarily. It's obviously something that's necessary to power our economy. But what we've seen with Virginia is it doesn't just impact Northern Virginia, it impacts the whole grid, 13-state grid that we're a part of. And I've even been supportive in the past, before this power line was announced, of saying, hey, well, we could get one in Maryland. We could get one in Maryland. It's good property tax revenue. It creates some jobs. But I'll be the first to admit, I didn't know as much of the impact it would have on the grid until this whole thing has happened. And so, it's a challenging environment. We can't be afraid of technological advancement in the future. But we also, I think, have to look at all the options. And so I can appreciate what the president had to say about it, but I also think he also wants our country to get back into producing more energy. Sure. So it's got to go hand in hand.
And I know, the conversation surrounding nuclear was really central in Annapolis this year, and that's a long-term conversation. That isn't something that the state of Maryland is going to be able to, flip a switch and have a new nuclear plant up and running next year. Looking at next year's legislative session, what do you think lawmakers need to do to target energy generation in the state if you don't want Maryland to be a transmission state, if you want it to be more of a generation state, to ensure that, another MPRP doesn't come up?
Yeah. Well, look, I think we need to accelerate and continue to accelerate the growth of nuclear, because that is really important for the long-term future. And there's some technologies coming online hopefully soon that will make it easier to have smaller sites. Yeah. But you're right, that's not a next year solution. That's a 3 or 4 years down the road solution. Had we focused on that instead of offshore wind for a decade, we would be in a better spot. But we are where we are. We need to keep/reopen almost closed power plants like Brandon Shores. And part of the reason some of these plants closed is that you'll hear it was expensive to operate these coal-fired and natural gas-fired plants. Well, the fact is a lot of that was external pressure from interest groups that caused shareholders to get wobbly on it. So there's a lot of factors, and we need to keep some of the plants open that are supposed to be about to close. And we need to do more to invest in making the state more friendly for natural. We need to invite natural gas energy production in without the caveats of it's got to later be turned into nitrogen, and some of the things we did this session that were sort of good, but we put all these riders on them this last legislative session, passing bills that were a little bit of progress, but could have been so much more progress, and we need to, I think, take some of those shackles off in the next legislative session.
But do you think the Democrats will be willing to do that, given the fact that they pushed for, like you mentioned, offshore wind? I mean, we're seeing what's happening in Ocean City, and that's being relitigated again, and we're nowhere near that being built at this point. How many years later we're still having that conversation? Are lawmakers really out of touch about what's really going on and the energy needs of the state?
I think a lot of them are, and I think as these energy prices rise, there's been a little bit of gamesmanship, or a little bit of cheap populism on tell the energy companies, tell BGE their rates are outrageous. Well, I'm definitely not here carrying a brief for the utility companies by any means, but there's also the factor of there's policies that the Democratic majority in Annapolis has been behind that make it very hard to produce reliable, affordable energy in the state. And so if you have to get energy from outside the state, it's more expensive. Now, I do want to say we're here talking about MPRP, and there's been very bipartisan cooperation and support to try to slow this down.
Yes.
And I definitely want to keep the focus on it, and I appreciate that from my Democratic colleagues. So I'm not trying to be too partisan here, but we definitely have got to get people to understand there's a real reason your electricity prices go up. There's a reason that they're looking at more out-of-state transmission, and it's a direct result of the policies we've had here.
Joanne, looking at the conversation that you had with the governor's staff, moving forward and hearing what we heard from the PSC chair, how are you feeling? How optimistic or maybe not so optimistic are you feeling about, the next 6 months, the next year ahead for this project?
Other than, wanting this all to go away and not thinking about a year ahead of this. I think, the other thing that the governor's team said is really focus on the process at the PSC and the CPCN process and bring forward all potential alternatives and solutions. And we are absolutely happy to do that. And it's a burden on the people. The people that are fighting this project have to pay for the experts and the testimony and the attorneys to go through that entire process, while at the same time, all ratepayers also reimburse PSEG for all of their expenses. So we're paying twice to defend our land, and that is seems a bit unfair, but that won't stop us from doing it, because that's what we need to do. And I think that's the point. Do we need data centers? Absolutely. We certainly, I don't want to be traveling, 4 days, 5 days a week for the rest of my life like I used to do before there were data centers. So I think that's an important part of our modern future. But bring the power to them and put them in the places that make sense and they don't infringe on local communities, and make sure they bring their own power. And I actually think data centers could be a part of the new future of energy and how it gets created and delivered across the nation. But again, I need a leader that's got the courage to step up and say, hey, we're going to do this different, and here's how it's going to happen, and we're going to carve a better way into the future for the nation. And I am ready to have that conversation at any moment in time.
All right. Well, we should point out that we did invite Delegate Michelle Guyton as well as Governor Wes Moore to take part in tonight's town hall. They declined our invitation. Stay with us. Our conversation will continue right after this. Welcome back to this Your Voice, Your Future town hall. Tonight, we're examining the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project. Joining us now is Rob Gramlich. Thank you so much for joining us to talk a little bit about the grid and the alternatives to grid reliability and the importance of having this conversation. Rob, talk to me a little bit about just alternatives to transmission and how all of this works.
Sure. Well, we were coasting along, meeting demand just fine for the last 25 years, so most people have not really been focused on this for quite a while, but it was really about 2 years ago where the curve shot up and we have a lot of power demand, and we're right in the bullseye in terms of the whole country, right in this part of the country. And
what was 2 years ago? What really drove that spike?
ChatGPT.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, that was the unknown thing that hit us. There were other things we're bringing manufacturing back. We're all shifting a little bit more to use electricity for lots of things, including even like oil and gas drilling is now electrified. So that was all happening, but it was gradual. And search and streaming from data centers, that was happening, but that was gradual. But when ChatGPT hit, suddenly the load forecast, power demand forecast shot up.
And I understand that using AI uses more energy than a traditional internet search does, and so the more people rely on AI, the more energy that people are going to use. So what do states and what do grid operators need to really look at to ensure that there is enough power there to support that, especially as we have the conversation surrounding more data centers and the governments want to look to build them in their communities?
Right, so there are certain options to meet that demand. So nuclear, you were talking about, that's great, but not in the 2020s, not going to happen. Coal power plants, no new coal plants, nobody's going to invest in new coal plants. Gas plants will be used to the extent we can manufacture the gas turbines, but those are all bought out through the decade. Not going to, you can't get a new one. Wind and solar will help and contribute as part of a broad portfolio, but not a full solution. No single generation source is a full solution. And then transmission is probably the most versatile of all of the sources because power flows back and forth over the line and across the integrated network, and generators trip offline now and again, it just happens, and the power automatically reroutes along the routes. So, I mean, it is, from a grid operator perspective, it's the best tool to have in your toolbox, there's no question. But the regulatory question that you were talking about with Chairman Hoover earlier is it needed?
Yeah.
And the need question is more a function of, well, what are the alternatives? If there's a reliability standard violation, okay, something needs to happen, but it could be generation, it could be this generation or that generation, could be transmission, reconductoring an existing route, or it could be this route or that route. So those are all the questions that they have to consider.
And when we're talking about reconfiguring some of the transmission lines that are already in place, and what does that process look like? Because we hear from homeowners who are in the path of where MPRP would go at this point. They say, why couldn't they just retrofit a transmission line that's already in place to a higher voltage power line or a transmission line?
There are actually a lot of opportunities to upgrade existing rights-of-way, and transmission line rights-of-way are some of the most valuable pieces of assets we have in the country, given our power needs. The utilities own these rights-of-way, and there are physically technologies that you can use to reconductor, sometimes leave the same towers in place and just put a new cable on, or you can replace the towers and upgrade with new structures, but there's advanced conductors, and there's other operational technologies, like if the wind is blowing and cooling a line down, you can actually deliver more over it because it's not overheating because of that wind. So those grid enhancing technologies become very useful. Now, they're not often any one solution by themselves to a major need, and again, we're sitting right in this part of the country in an area, a real hotspot. There's a lot of new load in Maryland as well as Virginia and other states. So there's absolutely a need, but that doesn't necessarily mean that any particular route is necessarily the right route.
Looking at why this specific project is the one that's moving forward, is it more beneficial for a company to build a new transmission line instead of retrofitting transmission lines that are already in place? Is it more, would they bring in more revenue to their shareholders, or why wouldn't they seek something like that?
I mean, there are often allegations in the electric industry that the utilities favor big capital investments because they earn money on, their allowed rate of return on their capital invested.
Yeah, I've heard that they make money when they spend money.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is generally true. But, on the other hand, of the various capital investments, a new route versus reconductoring an existing route doesn't necessarily make them more money. I'm not sure they want to be out there getting in a fight with your previous guests any more than those guests really want to be spending their full time fighting this line.
Right.
So it's it's not a great way to win friends. It is kind of a last resort. A new right of way is generally viewed as a last resort. You really want to try other things before you have to do that.
Looking at other parts of the country, I know that we were just looking at a map before we had started this conversation. This is really a hot spot in this region, Maryland, Virginia. I've heard that Northern Virginia is Data Center Alley. What other parts of the country are having this same conversation, or are we really alone in this?
Well, I remember you're a map person, so I showed you a map, but it just came out from the Trump administration, the Department of Energy, looking at power demand and resource adequacy, meaning our reliability needs. And yeah, it was showing this bright red hotspot in this part of the country more than any other part of the country, looking at 100 hours a year of power outage, loss of load hours, if something doesn't change. So that is really an issue. Again, it's it probably is Data Center Alley, but it's it's some in Maryland too, and we're all using our gadgets for everything now.
All right, Rob, we'll have to cut our conversation short. I appreciate your insight as always. I also want to thank all of our guests for being part of this Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. Fox 45 News will continue to follow the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project and keep you updated both on air and on the Fox 45 News app. I'm Mackenzie Frost. Have a great night.